When I was a kid, I was lucky enough that my parents bought a house that backed onto this big field. It was my playground as a kid, enabling me to play sports and hang out with my friends. It was always my dream to be able to fly models off it, though. At the young age of 8, I made it my main goal. It turned out, though, that when I was 8, the technology just wasn't there to do it safely. My only option was to buy a big nitro plane, join a club where I could safely be taught how to fly it. The dream of flying off this field was shattered for many years. Electric models did exist back then, but they were still big and dangerous to house the technology. I used to make aircraft out of old cardboard boxes. I'd take old components apart and try and salvage a powerful motor. Of course, they never flew. They were far too heavy. Instead, I used to taxi my nitro aircraft around this field, but I would never take off. The best I managed to do was build a free-flight, rubber band-powered Piper Cub. It was completely built up and covered in dope. Now that's not a drug. For those of us who are old enough to have covered an aircraft in dope will know what I mean, but if you are not, then don't even worry about it. You would use a drill to spin up the rubber motor and then hopefully get a 30-second flight out of it. That never happened though. I spent an entire year building it. My dad decided I was too young to fly it myself, so he wound it up, let go of it, and it smashed into the ground into a million pieces. Fast forward to 25 years later, and I would have loved to have been able to present my 8-year-old self with this product. This is the FX803 Piper Cub, and it has been sent to me as a Christmas present by cndirect.com. Thanks to CN Direct for this very kind gesture. The child of me is bursting with excitement. I know that these days an aircraft like this would not be seen as very significant, but for me it's bringing up lots of nostalgia, especially as it's a Piper Cub too. It doesn't have any moving control surfaces. It relies on differential thrust to make the turns. The aircraft is balanced to be slightly tail heavy so that when we apply power the aircraft climbs. It's using what looks like 7mm cordless motors. I can't help but to wonder what would happen if I added bigger motors and the Parrot props. Interesting idea. At its current weight of 26 grams, I don't think I have the option to add FPV. It's using 2.4 GHz for control. We only have power and turning controls, however. The front prop does spin, but it's just for decoration. It comes with a USB lead to charge it, 2 spare props, and the undercarriage which nicely slots in underneath. The manual advises we should get a 10-minute flight from the tiny 150 mAh battery. It takes about 30 minutes to charge, so let's go and see how it performs. So I have waited about 4 weeks to get a decent day where I could do a flight with this thing, and I'm afraid this is the best that I could come up with. I shouldn't complain about the weather. It's the middle of December and we are in the winter, so unfortunately we have an 18-mile-an-hour wind, which is totally not ideal for this type of aircraft, and it's also raining. I have taken my GoPro and strapped it to my head. It's in its waterproof case. Flying this aircraft in the rain has caused some of the paint on the side of it to flake off. This isn't the manufacturer's fault at all. You shouldn't be flying it in the rain, and I take full responsibility for that. Anyways, let's get and talk about how this thing flies. About 5 years ago, I bought my godson a similar plane to this, and it was pretty disappointing. It did the job, and he was pretty happy with it, but as a hobbyist myself, I was expecting more from it. So with this aircraft, I set my expectations pretty low, and I was really surprised with it. We have a crazy wind here, and somehow it is managing to cut through it and fly. Not only that, it's flying really well too. If you are thinking of getting into flying RC planes but don't want to splash out on a 4-channel trainer, then definitely try this first. It costs $17 and you can't go wrong with it. The way that you want to fly it is apply full throttle and the aircraft will pitch upwards slightly. This is actually the case with a lot of training aircraft. If I look back to when I was learning to fly on the big nitro planes, you would often start with a 3-channel aircraft, usually with throttle, elevator and rudder, then a big dihedral on the wings to give you the stability. You would mostly use the power of the engine to gain height and the rudder to turn. This little electric aircraft does exactly the same. I found that on a windy day like today, I would have my throttle at 100% while in a crosswind and downwind, and then into wind about 90%, otherwise it will gain too much height and balloon up. You can learn a lot about flying with this plane. To do a flat turn, you need the smallest inputs on the rudder. If you input too much, then it will wing over and you will lose a lot of height. You can actually use this to your advantage too, though. On a day like today, we don't really want to be backing off the throttle to lose height. The wind is too strong and we will go into a stall. Instead, I can wing the aircraft over and get back down to the height that I want to be. Not too much input though, otherwise it will roll completely over and it will be hard to recover from that. Another thing that really impressed me with this plane is its range. I could fly it to the point where I could hardly see it and I still had full control. I can't wait until I have a nice calm day so I can fly this, because it's so much fun now. It's going to fly great in better weather. Unfortunately, better weather is most likely about 5 months away from now, so this is the best I'm gonna get. In the air, the thing is so quiet too. You can't hear the motors going at all. You can, however, hear that dummy prop spinning. I don't want to do too many more flights with this plane this time of year as I'm worried about ruining it. The finish is really good quality and wouldn't look out of place hanging from the ceiling. There is a trim dial in the middle of the transmitter, however I found that I didn't need to mess with that at all. It kept completely straight with the trim in the middle and it just flew perfect. You can fly this plane off tarmac as well. As it's got an undercarriage, it takes off quite nicely. Again, it's too wet and windy to demonstrate this. I can't help but wonder if I took this aircraft apart and added bigger motors, perhaps a bigger battery, used higher pitch props such as the rolling spider props, I could probably add a 3-gram FPV rig. I don't know if it would fly, but I might try to do this when the weather is better. It looks like the documentation is true about the flight time. I am getting about a 10-minute flight out of it. So there you go, that is my review of the FX803 Piper Cub from CN Direct. Sorry the image is a bit gloomy. Thanks to CN Direct for sending this in to me as a Christmas gift, and thanks to you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.